The field behind me is sacred ground, for in the year 1066, King Harold would be defeated here at the Battle of Hastings. William of Normandy would forever be known as William the Conqueror, and Anglo-Saxon England would be Norman. Our story begins here, however not with a knight or a king, but an ambassador. His name, Hubbard. The first mention of Udo Filius Huberti is in the Doomsday Book, a catalogue of war booty that William commissioned after the battle. Hubert di Rio, Udo's father, had been a favourite of William back when he was a meagre duke in France. William had sent him to be ambassador to the King of England, Edward the Confessor. Edward was so enamoured by Hubert that he had named William to be the next King of England. William would be king, but he'd have to fight a battle here at Hastings.
Yay!
William had promised Hubert the office of the steward of the household, but in fear of causing commotion back in Normandy, had sent him and his 3 sons back to France. Udo, the 4th son, remained and became the steward of the household. Sorry, Dad. Udo founded the Abbey of St. John here in 1096 in Colchester. He would be buried here, and the family would prosper for centuries.
Until this man showed up. King Henry VIII would cause problems for the family. Hubert had become Hubbard in England, and they were Catholic. King Henry VIII, not so much. The coronation of King Henry and his subsequent disagreements with the Catholic Church, predominantly over his wives, would lead to schism, the founding of the Church of England, and the Hubbards wishing good old Udo had gotten back on the boat with Daddy. Here to help explain the ramifications of the English Reformation is a Catholic scholar.
So, King Henry VIII and the formation of the Church of England, it wasn't just as simple as the Pope didn't want to grant the king a favor, because the king already received a favor from the Pope. Some backstory. So, King Henry VIII's brother dies. His wife is without children. King Henry VIII says, "I'd like to marry you." But to do so, he has to receive special permission because it is his brother's wife. And normally this is a taboo.
As I sat there listening to him drone on about legislative acts, Queen Mary and such forth, I realized why the general public found history so boring. They need anecdotes, stories, general gossip.
They go off. They live.
To summarize, the next century would see the Hubbards clinging strongly to their faith, so much in fact they tended to stay indoors. When they did go outside, they would wear funny hats. Pictured here are historical interpreters from the 1950s wearing Hubbard headgear. It was believed that tall hats would bring them closer to God. In reality, it brought them closer to the Tower of London and the loony bin. Oh dear God. Then, in 1666, the year of the beast, London would experience a catastrophe. A fire would break out in a bakery on, and I shit you not, Pudding Lane. It would last 4 days. Members of the Hubbard family were in a prayer session, for it was a Sunday when the fire started. The Hubbards felt that if Sunday was good enough for the Church of England, a good Catholic would pray into Monday. Finally, one of the cousins by the name of Levi went outside to get some fresh air. He ran back inside yelling, "Armageddon! Armageddon!" The family ran outside to find the city ablaze. Kegs of gunpowder were being set off intentionally by Londoners desperate to deprive the fire of fuel. To the stunned Hubbards, it probably sounded like the trumpets heralding the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. Plague had recently struck London, and it was believed the burning of sulphur would keep one safe. Nathaniel Hubbard was a merchant, and his vast stores of sulphur were being used in the kegs of gunpowder. After seeing the fire and watching his livelihood go up in smoke, Nathaniel was overcome with emotion. He dropped to his knees and muttered only 2 words.
One onlooker was reported to have said, "My God, all of London is ablaze, and all this Hubbard can do is yell fire and brimstone."
We want to thank you for supporting this PBS station. Contributions from viewers like you bring great programs into your living room. Programs such as Sherlock, Doc Martin, and Downton Abbey, and now this documentary on the Hubbards. We urge you to keep calling in.
Those that donate at the $50 level will receive Bizet's Carmen on Laserdisc. Player not included.
Again, we want to thank you for your contributions. Well, we've just received a $10,000 donation from a viewer, a Hubbard nonetheless. We want to thank Mike Hubbard for his generous donation. And remember, if you decide to withdraw your donation, you're not hurting us, you're hurting the children.
Magnificent, isn't it? The painting behind me is sacred, for the Hubbards have become patrons of art.
This is the Cardinal's portrait, not to be confused with Portrait of a Cardinal, painted by the Italian Renaissance artist Raphael. The painting depicts a monk trying to complete a portrait of a church cardinal, only it appears the cardinal has fallen asleep, most likely put to sleep by the book lying on the floor beside him in the painting, probably one of those dreadful scholastic philosophers. This historian says put to sleep in the literal sense, because, given the cardinal's age, he has most likely moved on to a higher place. When I say higher place, I mean dead. Anyway, the look of confusion on the young monk's face is understandable. He has most likely been in that room with the cardinal for hours. I would be scratching my head too, trying to figure out how to tell my superiors. To make things worse, the poor monk in the painting had recently taken a vow of silence. Having the cardinal hold that pose where he looks up at the sky probably didn't help the cardinal's circulation either. There's always the chance to pull off a medieval version of Weekend at the Bernie's and fake that the cardinal is still alive, at least until dinner time, when he can be blamed on Friar John's porridge. Now what does this painting have to do with the Hubbards? Well, after the fire of London, they abandoned the sulphur business and became patrons for starving artists. Only they never quite seemed to back the right painter. This is the only painting to gain any notoriety. Lady Mildred Hubbard purchased the painting sight unseen. She had such an eye for art, she didn't need to see it. The events depicted in the cardinal's portrait captivated audiences when the painting was unveiled in the late 19th century. It was loaned to the Louvre, where it was predominantly displayed in the Louvre's loo. Loo means bathroom for you Americans. For decades, it hung while visitors sat on the thinker.
Oh, hello. You caught me reading one of the classics. World War II saw the French evacuate the Louvre, but they felt they had to leave the Nazis something, so the cardinal's portrait remained.
World War II saw the Hubbards taking up arms, not so much to defeat Nazism, but to get their damn painting back. Lord Friedrich Hubbard would join the Royal Hussars, and his actions on the beaches of Dunkirk would go down in infamy.
This is not the beginning of the end, nor the end of the beginning, but only a slight aside that shall ultimately see us back at the starting point. Let's blow Jerry up.
But sir, what are we blowing up?
Let's find out.
The charges had been set inside the Major's bunker. They were there in case they had to evacuate. Major Hubbard was killed in the explosion.
The war would last until 1945, and the Cardinal's portrait would remain lost until a young man from another family, a Welsh family, was able to return it, but that is a story for another time.
Hopefully we don't get shot.
Well, that's all in the risk. You gotta take risks.